Concordia was a much more complex kind of operation than Synod Inc. I mean, a much larger budget, many more people, many more stakeholders, many more constituent groups inside and outside the church. I think education obviously is a strength of mine, experientially. Why is it that young people, sons and daughters, are not going into church work? And grandparents are worrying, why is it that they're not even coming to church? Why is it that they are concerned about their children, their grandchildren? And I think a lot of it goes back to culture then too.
We have the largest Protestant school system in the country, in addition to the Concordias, which you're familiar with. We've got 1,800 LCMS Lutheran high schools, elementary schools, early education centers, and they're all growing increasingly more diverse, even as our congregational membership and leadership remains pretty consistently mono-ethnic. So as synodical president, how would you empower, equip Lutheran schools to bridge this divide and better serve these diverse students and faculty?
More recently here, I've been in Austin, Texas. Last year, I had a chance to be a part-time executive director of the Lutheran High School here in Austin. And very few of our students were from LCMS congregations, very few.
We're seeing all kinds of challenges in the Concordia University system that shouldn't be there. This didn't have to happen the way that it has happened. Our schools ought to be championed and encouraged, again, as that tip of the mission spear, and instead they become kind of focus of the sharpest of criticisms, and most of them entirely unfair. It's very telling, isn't it, that our Lutheran Church Missouri Synod is one of the 2 or 3 most homogeneous church bodies in the country. We lost our only historic black college. We lost our presence in New York City, the cockpit of the world. We lost our presence in the Pacific Northwest, arguably as unchurched an area as anywhere in the country. And why? So that we can maintain this kind of Midwest. It didn't have to happen. Frankly, it just didn't have to happen that way.
And isn't it? I think about it in terms of higher education, for example. So, we lost our only historic black college. We lost our presence in the cockpit of the world, right, in New York City. Good grief. We lost our presence in the Pacific Northwest, where obviously Christian witness would be a welcome thing. It's an important thing. And so we have this enclave for the most part in the Midwest. We have school in Texas and California, and we're grateful for that. But we have this kind of, it just gives the impression that the only thing we can do is to meet the needs of certain sorts of people.
And you brought it up too, that we've lost some real critical places like Selma, the work that I have Bishop Benke, that's who he is to me. Bishop Emeritus Benke, Dave Benke brought up, those kinds of things, those being lost tells me that we didn't have voices at the table that were being heard and acknowledged and even heeded to. Yeah, really listen to, and guided by, to help guide some of the things that we do, I think is really important.
Well, I think too, just briefly, if I might, that given the significance of this in our cultures, not that it's newly significant, but that it's so dramatically significant, that why wouldn't we want to listen to the people whose finger is closest to the pulse of what's going on, who are thinking about this a lot, who are spending a lot of time on it. I've only had a few conversations with some of you, but I've learned a ton. Just in the last month, I've learned so much, and I've always thought that I was pretty aware that I read and I think, but it seems to me that should be already the case. and not to begin with the presumption that by listening to you that we're yielding to some sort of wokeism that's going to corrupt us and send us down a path that we dare not go.
I think one of the major cultural problems for us is we've been playing defense for far too long. We've been still living with the residue, I think, of, and for those of you who are outside the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, we had a seminary split, an infamous walkout, a battle over the Bible, and kind of the higher critical method. And so since then, we've got this long memory, I think, a generation and a half or so of kind of playing defense to defend the scriptures, the inerrant, infallible, inspired word of God. Can you speak to that?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And I think it just goes back to this very simple cultural perspective: fear or hope, right? Mm-hmm. Are we afraid? Mm-hmm. Are we afraid that we're going to lose our colleges and universities to secular, influences? Are we afraid that we're going to lose our Lutheran identity? I'm not afraid of those things.
The president of the synod should have a role of being great champion for our schools. I mean, the kind of chief cheerleader, and not again just the part of being the kind of chief critic or supervisor, as it were, of what's going on.
I was always very, very emphatic about how Concordia was the church's school. The reality is, over the course of my career as a college president, the church in convention, right? Let's say it that way. The church in convention sought increasingly to gain control over what happened on the campuses through election of presidents, through election of board members, through prior approval of theology faculty, and whatever other mechanism it could, in order to ensure theological integrity. I was always very, very emphatic about how Concordia was the church's school. And it's sort of like, adult child now. The schools are grown up, they've matured, they're doing fine, they're doing well. And we have not been able to have an adult conversation with the church because you have this parent who is just adamant on controlling every dimension of what goes on. And it just runs so contrary to what I think would be good governance, which recognizes the local authority of local boards. I was always very, very emphatic about how Concordia was the church's school, and to give them more authority and opportunity. Our failure to do that well has cost us 3 campuses and another now that says we're not going to make it if this is the model, and they're seeking a different relationship. There's only one other school that didn't close, by the way, and that was Concordia Ann Arbor.
That's right.
And we did that one differently.